Hello and welcome back to Inside the Session. In this episode, I'm going to be showing you how I made my edit of the song Marieta. So we're going to be going deeper and exploring the production techniques that I use for creating organic downtempo or organic electronic music. So there's a lot of edits that you will hear if you're into this genre of music. I guess you are. That's why you're here. Many labels like Cosmic Awakenings, Cosmovision, and others. A lot of individual artists have been creating edits, meaning like kind of in the gray area of legality in remixes of taking normally older songs, world music songs, and revamping them, remixing them, giving them new life to be played in DJ sets. So I personally love doing this. I think that there's so many beautiful songs that have so much potential and life. And this is just a way to repurpose them and give them the opportunity to be played and used in an environment that maybe they would not have been used before. So I think that's really cool, and I have done several already. So this is one of my more recent ones that I'm going to show you. I'll be continue to make a few other episodes showing you some more edits because, well, the thing is with the edits, there's a lot of really good ones, but in my opinion, a lot of them are like mixed poorly. They're not really high quality. Like sometimes the idea is really great, but I just can't play it in my set because I don't feel like they've been able to achieve like a really like pro modern sound with like mixed with the organic vibe and kind of vintage vibe of the track that's being edited. So I look to find the nice balance of respecting the original song, respecting the original quality, keeping the organic vibe, but at the same time making it punchy and modern sounding so it fits in well with my sets and that it really moves the people when they're dancing when I play in a DJ set. So that's my intention of what I try to achieve in the mix and in the production of my edits. One more thing that I'm going to share before we actually dive into my session here is what do I look for in a song before I decide like which song am I going to edit? How do I decide that? So a lot of times I just put on Spotify radio or a mix on YouTube or something of world music, Latin music, South American, African, whatever. And when I hear a song that I just feel like really like catching me, like really moving me, I think it's got a beautiful voice, beautiful rhythm, beautiful melody, something that's there. Then I start to pay attention and see if it has potential to become an edit. So what am I looking for? Number one, I'm looking for the tempo. Is it in a good tempo range? And is it in 4/4? A lot of times world music can be in like 5/4, 6/4, 3/4, something that's a little bit more difficult to work with and not typical to electronic music. So ideally something that's in the tempo range that I want, anywhere from 80 to 120. I work in that tempo range, or even slower. It could be 70 to 120 or 125. It's pretty huge range, really. So as long as it's there and it's in 4/4, it's okay. And then another thing that I'm looking for is that it's empty, that you'll see in this song, that it's not too much going on. There's not a full drum kit, full bass line. Like if it's like a full band, it's going to be harder to fit in your production with what's already there. Basically, we want something with space, something with a nice vocal, a few instruments, maybe just one instrument, two or three, maybe like a basic percussion, but not like a full drum kit, so that there's space for us to create on top and in harmony with what's there already without trying to like fit them. That you just want it to all like naturally fit in together. So you'll see what I mean when I start showing you what I did here in this track. So that's what I look for when I'm listening to songs and thinking about if I can make an edit. Is it like really catching my attention? Is it making me move? Is it making me groove? And then does it have the space Is it like a nice track that's going to be easy for me to work with? So let's, I'm going to make myself a little smaller here, have a look a little bit more at what's going on in the session. So we can see that I don't have too much going on in the session, and that's because this was a great track, and I don't like personally really want to, I'm not going for like a full-on crazy remix. I'm basically just trying to like support this track without like fully reinventing it, you know, because I love the song how it is. So I want the song to stay the song, and I want to just kind of create a new foundation and a little bit of a new sound that's going to allow it to really stand out and fit in also with the set. So the first thing that you have to do when, let's get into it. The first thing you have to do when you're making an edit, number one, is drag in the track. So here at the top, I have the song Marieta, and the number one thing is to warp the track. So we can see here, I will put a group on all my effects in the channel, so I can easily turn everything off. And we can solo and just listen. So at first it was kind of hard for me to warp this track because it has this really like push and pull groove that I didn't want to lose, and it was also even a little bit difficult for me to find the one. But then I found it. Sometimes it takes a little time to just like have some patience and work with it until you find that really with the metronome, basically just put on the metronome and so what feels like the one is actually like a little bit above the beat. And that's, you're gonna get that a lot in world music, in African music, in Latin music, working with that. So if you're not a percussionist and you don't have like a super strong foundation with percussion, this is gonna be something that's gonna help you to develop your relationship with rhythms and polyrhythms, because most of the world works with polyrhythms, not for on the floor like electronic music. And what we're trying to do here is make the best of both worlds and really like integrate the beautiful polyrhythms of world music with the 4 on the floor steady beat that is used a lot in downtempo or house or electronic music. So once you find the groove and you get it warped, like I don't do like a full on the grid warping. I try to make it as transparent as possible. So I'm not going in and like warping every quarter note unless it really has to be done that way. A lot of times these older songs are not recorded to a click. Hopefully the track is in pretty good time, and we can see here I have some warp markers, but not that many, so that's great. It didn't take me too long once I found out what was going on there, really. See, even there when I press play, it feels like it's not starting on the one because that note is a little bit before the one. So if I zoom in here, we can see that that's what was making it difficult for me, because I thought that was the one, and then once I realized that it was not, it was slightly above, and everything clicked in. The one actually doesn't even have really an accented note in the guitar riff anyways in this song. So that may be a little bit of a challenge, but once you figure it out, it's good. So then my creative process is generally warp the track, bring it in, and then I start building, generally, almost always just start getting a kick that feels good in with the track. So we can bring our kick here. And a snare. And we can see now that the kick and snare sound kind of flat, and that's because I don't have the effects group on the original track. It's just playing like how it is. So the sounds are not fitting in together yet. And then the next thing that I'll do is add like a hi-hat. So just these like basic 3 elements, like the most basic elements for creating beats, basically in modern music and electronic music, the kick, snare, hi-hat. Once I get that groove, depending on the track and the groove of the track, the hi-hats, maybe we can see here that I have the hi-hat pulled pretty far forward, and that's so that it fits in nicely with the groove of the track. That's also something that you can do to create groove in your tracks that are not edits. But here you need to like shift the hi-hat and find really where it's like fitting in with the groove of the track, because that's what I'm trying to do with everything here, is that make it fit in and make it sound like this was actually how the song was produced in the first place. You know, that's my goal. So once I have those 3 elements in there, then we go into starting to mix the sounds together. So now I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna turn these all off. The filters can stay. And go one by one and show you what I did. So first is cutting out like mostly below 100 Hertz. There's not a bass line in the track anyways, and I want to leave that space, the frequency space, for my kick and for my bass line. So I put this EQ, cutting out a little bit of those lower frequencies and a little bit of the higher frequencies. So we can feel that the kick already like comes out a little bit when I put on that EQ. And then I have this SSL channel EQ that I love to work with a lot. This is from Waves, and I think I'm just brightening up. Here we can see that I added 3 dB to around 4 or 5K, added 3 dB again in the same range. So this is like bringing up a frequency range that's like gonna make it sound a little bit more modern, kind of like these high mids. I'm not a huge fan of that frequency range in general. Like pop music and electronic music, definitely they put more than what I normally put in my tracks because I find it harsh, but at the same time, these like really older vintage sounding tracks, to make them sound a little bit more modern, I like using this EQ because it's a little bit more like transparent and musical than for like the Ableton EQ. And we can see. You'll hear it in the voice. So that's just bringing up the vocal and the presence of the guitar a little bit. Then I have a saturator also from Waves, this AX vintage saturator. So that brings like a little bit of a crunch texture to it. And then I EQ, some corrective EQing. A little bit of compression. There's some random peaks coming up there. Again, more compression with the SSL compressor. So I have the SSL EQ and the SSL compressor that I like. Again, more vintage songs were definitely less compressed than modern music. I'm not a fan of over compression, but I'm just like making these subtle moves to improve the sound quality and make a little bit more modern sound. So I have like a slow attack and release, just the ratio of 2, so no heavy compression, just like tightening it up a little bit. And you see it by nothing drastic, not doing anything like overly drastic. I'm really keeping the integrity of the organic sound of the song. Then I have here a little delay. So this is a really nice trick that I like to use for like widening a sound a little bit, like throwing it into the stereo of something that's really like mono sounding. So you can put, you can do this with any delay really, but I'm doing it with the H delay from Waves that I put it on ping pong with a very low feedback and a very low dry wet and a high pass, and it's like a pretty short amount of time. So this is just the really, you hear on the vocal a little bit. It's just creating a little bit of echo that's kind of opening it up and adding some groove there behind. I'm really a fan of subtleties, and you'll see that sometimes maybe you don't even hear, unless you are really good with mixing and trained, what exactly I'm doing in some things, but then you add it all together and you'll hear a big difference. So I add a little bit of delay, a small reverb. I love the RC48, and I love this preset actually, Honey. It's just like a short, wide reverb that's great on percussions and for adding space, but not like making the mix muddy with too much reverb. So now we have a little bit of reverb, a little delay, a little saturation, a little EQ. You can really hear it on the voice. And then I'm using one of my favorite plugins here, which is called Shaperbox, using the volume shaper. So this is kind of like a sidechain, basically. It's shaping the volume, and then here it allows you to do frequency specific. So it's not working on the highs, but it's basically every quarter note. We can see here, the length is set to quarter notes with this shape. So the advantage of using Shaperbox and not doing like the classic sidechaining technique with the compressor from Ableton is this allows you to give specific shape to the volume of how the volume comes back once it ducks. So you can bring it in faster, slower, and this is like really helping you to have more control over the groove that you're creating with the sidechaining effect or volume shaping effect. So this is like relatively advanced, but at the same time not that difficult and can make a huge difference. So I am ducking the low frequencies. Here you can see it just going every quarter note to make space for the kick and the bass line that I haven't added yet. But so now the kick is even more clear. And then finally again the Shaperbox, but on the entire sound without any frequency, without being frequency specific. And here it's only at 9%. So again, very subtle, just moving the track a little bit in the groove without having a super obvious like pumping sound. Utility, and here a little bit of direct sidechain compression from the kick also on the whole track. So it kind of like, for me, I just start to feel it like my body rocking, that it's moving in with the kick and the beat. And it sounds together, whereas when I turn this off, we definitely feel more body from the guitars, which feels nice, but then that's filled up by the bass that I then add and the other percussions, and my body just stopped moving right away. It just kind of starts pumping once I turn everything on there, and that's what I want, this just like automatic body movement, and that's like a really telltale sign that I'm on the right track with my production. So that's everything on the track. So just brightened it up, cleaned it up, gave it a little saturation, a little compression, a little sidechain moving, so it's making it sound a little bit more modern while totally keeping the organic integrity. A lot of times I like for the kick to use the Kick 2 plugin, but here in this track I used this nice sample that I found. EQ, pretty simple, just rolling off the ultra lows and pulling out the mids. So do that almost on every kick. It's not really a necessary frequency in kick drums. in electronic music anyways. In my production, I find that it's blocking a lot of mid frequencies that other things could yeah, potentially have like frequency masking and blocking. I use the transient master to add a little attack and pull down the sustain, so just like making it a little bit tighter. That's from Native Instruments, the transient master, really simple plugin to use. And great, a little bit of compression with the H comp from Waves, love this one. So I use like medium attack, tight release on kick drums, ratio of 4, another compressor, and the limiter, the Waves L2 limiter, which is actually not even limiting the kick right now, but for me it just, like, I don't know, adds some magic. As plugins do sometimes. You just kind of put them there and sometimes you don't really need to do anything, but they make it sound better. So off, kind of down there, not in the mix, not really like punching, and there, really comes into the mix. There's kind of like down, boom, boom. Here, now it's got a little bit more life. So like, I mean, these are the differences between something for me that sounds pro and tight and amazing, and something that's not, is really like the attention to these details and subtleties. Because I could have just left that kick sample there like that, but it's not gonna have the same effect on the dance floor, for sure. I know it, I've done it, I've tested it. And so with my snare group, I have 2 layers. You can hear one kind of like more nice textured clap sound, and one more of a classic snare sound layered together. So this one I have pushed up the high frequencies there. With snares, I generally always have at least 2, sometimes even 3 or 4 layers. And then I have my group treating things together, so I compress it all together with the H comp. That's my favorite compressor for percussions. I use the black box, which is one of my favorite saturators. Saturation is key to making pro sound, making things sound alive, textured, bright, modern. And this is a great plugin, the black box. I love it. Amazing sound. Some more corrective EQ. Then I use the Shaper Box 2 that has this great, you can see here if I can add plus, and crush is already used so I can't add it again, but it has this snare crush sound preset for saturating, and it's wow. It makes a huge difference. We can hear off, on, really like more bright and defined. I think it sounds great. Again, this kind of like ping pong delay, but here I don't use with BPM, I'm using milliseconds, just 33 milliseconds, so very short. And I have then the dry wet set to only 11. So if I turn that up, you can hear that it really comes into the stereo field of something that's mono. And then I just kind of reduce it until it's almost transparent, but just adding a little bit of width and stereo. I love stereo sounds. I like when things sound wide and open. Tightening it up, this is great on if you have like several layers of a snare or anything really, and you want to make them sound like more together. You can just add the transient master, pull down the sustain a little bit. So it just cleans up that tail and makes it sound more tight for me. And then I add a little 2 reverbs, snare fattener reverb, and then dark glue. So one is a little bit longer reverb and one is a little bit shorter. And yeah, that's how I get this whole snare sound. So we can turn it off. On, off. Ooh, it's like a whole different sound. this one clearly more impactful. We can hear it in the mix. There you don't even hear the snare. And there it really punches through the mix. So again, when you're mixing, listening to things on their own never works. Don't recommend it, only for hearing small details sometimes, like a zoom in. But generally I'm like applying all of these things while listening to the sound in the mix and trying to just find, okay, when do I get to the point that it's like really like punching through and clear, having the effect in the song that I want, which is making the head bob. Okay, great. So we can keep going through some more of the sounds here. I'll go to the bass line after on the high perk. So on my hi-hat, I have here just an EQ cutting out unnecessary lows. And then I have some more effects on this whole high perk group, which is again the Aphex saturator, saturating high end like in a nice way. Is really going to give a lot of texture to things like shakers and stuff, because obviously like this, there's a really organic texture to the original song here, so I need to make these high end elements sound like kind of fitting in with that. So that's why I chose to use this vintage exciter to bring a bit of vintage sound to these samples that I'm bringing into the track. And a little reverb again with this oil preset from RC48. That's fantastic. So then I choose two different shakers. This one's kind of like simple on the beat. And then this one I use Shaper Box to volume shape like sidechain, and also it has this panning plugin that's great. So that's creating some like side to side dynamic movement. So we can hear those all together with the snare, the kick. So this already should be like a pretty inspiring, moving, dynamic beat alone. And when you bring in the track, that's bringing it alive, right? And it all fits together. So with these like world music tracks, it's really important to find shakers that are aligned and in time and in the groove as the original track. So sometimes it takes a minute to have some patience and find the right shaker that's really fitting in with the track. Especially this one, that's like a little bit more moving. And we can see when I add, without that, it's like kind of chill vibes. And then just adding it in, bringing in this extra little bit of movement and energy in the hi-hat. And these are just loops that I didn't really do that much to change them, because, well, the thing with the edits is that like this is already floating around and so alive that having something a little bit more loopy underneath is not really going to be noticeable. I think it actually just bringing a little bit of stability to the track. These are also like nice 4-bar loops already that have a little bit of variation. And then obviously the panning and volume shaping also are adding like dynamics, movement, variation. We can see some variation there in the waveform. Like they're already pretty alive as they are loops. So yeah, I think it's all sounding good together. And then, well, I don't want that in the group, but we can put this conga here together. So then I have the conga. Again, the same with the shaker. It's very important to find something that's like respecting and working with the groove of the track and not fighting with it. But I did feel that this track could use a little bit more groove in percussion for a little bit more energy. So again, now we can hear with that the whole beat. Nice. Very like alive, moving, grooving, and then when we bring it in with our track, it's all working together, it's bouncing. Just feeling how my body reacts to these different moves, to bringing in different elements and stuff, is like my best signal, what I use to see if what I'm doing is working, you know, just like really, how's my body reacting to this? How does it feel? Does it make me groove more or does it make me groove less? Just like naturally. And by feeling that, you will know if you're making the right decisions in your production. So that's how it is there. And finally, we can check out the bass line that I used. Reactor. I used the Simple Deep preset from Monarch, which is a great bass. So I just came up with this bass line, I think, just like playing around on the push, the keyboard of the push. Some shaper box to vibe there. It's not overly prominent in the track, but it is adding a nice little layer, and then a little maximizer to compress that. So that's everything there. Maybe you didn't even notice that bass line before, but it's there. It's just like subtly. Amazing. So I like building up all of this over the track. Maybe while I'm just like looping 8, 16 bars of the track, building up these different like ideas, and then I try to just listen to the track basically from start to finish and just kind of naturally feel like, okay, where do I want the kick to come out? Like, I'm not like really thinking about this. I'll kind of just play the whole track, and at some point I'm like, ah, that's a good pot to make a break. Okay, let's bring out the kick, let's bring it back in. Maybe I'm like actually recording me doing that in time. You can see they kind of just like is happening at random times, but that's how I decide. And because basically now by bringing in and out these elements, you're really like influencing how the feeling of the arrangement of the track is, that you can like make a break part in what was the chorus of the track or whatever by taking out the kick and the bass. So yeah, these I've created all of these elements. I know that they're working with the track, and then it's just deciding, okay, where are they gonna go? How are they gonna fit? Where are they gonna stay? To start to create my own arrangement of how it's gonna work. And yeah, I just do that really organically by listening to the song and just taking things in and out and seeing how it feels. These is pretty much staying all the way through and mainly just taking out the kick. And then here I make like a full break section where I take out the kick and the bass, a few little breaks in the percussion. And the final like full element that I added here is this Massive X nice trippy synth pad. So adding a synth is just like adding that. I mean, it's a pretty organic synth as it is. And that's just adding like a more space and a little bit more modern touch. Again, pretty subtle, but filling in some nice frequency space there in the high end, making it a little bit more bright. And then in my edits, I generally try to make like a nice DJ-friendly kind of intro and something that's leading up to the song, not just starting from here. But finding some kind of part in the track that I can loop maybe and bring in these elements. So I just took this little part from the beginning and then I have it filtering in, like automated. The auto filter is filtering in over time here. So it starts there with the kick. already the groove is already there and you're getting like the vibe of the track, but it's filtering in with the loop. I've got the shakers going. So for me, it really feels like it's like building up already, very interesting. And that's a nice part that you could loop to bring it into your set. Here I made this little effect by just cutting that out. So then you can get creative and cut and chop up and cut different little parts of the track to make some effects and things and spice it up. I have the kick shorter here than here, so it's not like the full kick yet. The synth, I added my own effect here, that little transition effect. And then that little filter automation there to make like an effect before coming into the drop. So this is all my 16 bars lead in. I have like 8 bars of this kind of like loopy part that can be looped and mixed in. And then this is kind of like introducing the song before coming into the main part. Still looped. But we got the, so this is actually from the end of the track. This is from here, from at the end of the track. Cut everything here, take a little break. And it's alive. So I'm just letting it rock, everything together. Here I felt, okay, let's take out the kick, build up the tension a little bit by taking out the kick. Okay. So I have a little bit of automation here going to reverb to make some build-ups in these parts. In this first one I didn't do it on the kick, but in these second 2 breaks, yes. Also the filter here, automating this section. And I also have the synth automating up and down to accent different parts of the track. So here adding reverb, adding synth, kind of pushing the energy up. And then here I create this full break. So this was what was the end of the track. But then I loop this part. And then here I add some automations. Filter. And I bring back in this main part of the track. So that's how I took going what was originally the ending of the track. It's not a very long song. I didn't want it to end yet, so I just looped this and then brought it back to the main part of the song and dropped it back in to create like a second drop. So that's how my thinking of like, okay, how can I recreate the arrangement of this so that it fits better to what I want? It was too short. How did I make it longer? Let's do it again. And now in this part, the synth a little bit longer, and it doesn't feel repetitive because the song was so short and the part is great, so. And then again there, just taking out the snare, all the percussion there to really make like a full break that's making higher contrast and then more impact when everything comes back in together. one more break coming in here before the end. And then here I allow it to actually just come out and come down slowly, keeping in the bay. So this could be looped and considered like DJ friendly kind of out, especially this last little part here. And then I just loop one more time here. Leaving the boot, so there's like a few options there for where you can loop. Go out. So yeah, that's it. Pretty like simple and yet complex at the same time, because there's not that many elements. I didn't really do that much, but to make everything like really work together and moving and alive, and redoing the arrangement and these little decisions are something that come with practice with time. I've made a lot of edits now, and this one I know this edit works very good because I've played it a lot. And definitely gets the people moving. And then here I can give you one more look just at the master channel. So that was my creative process in creating this edit of a Marieta from the band Sierra from Cuba. And I really love this track. It's brought a lot of vibes to the dance floor, as I think edits really do. Just really bring a set alive, bringing this kind of track. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you felt it was insightful, everything that I shared here with you today, and that it helps you, give you some ideas and direction for creating your own edits to make them sound pro and punchy and modern and organic, and keeping alive the beautiful spirit of these songs that we are so blessed to have and to be working with in this way. So thank you so much. Hope you have a wonderful day, and see you next time in Inside the Session. Cheers. This is J.Pool, and if you like more of this content, please please let me know, write to me, follow me on Instagram, follow me on YouTube, write to me DM, comments, whatever, anything, what song you would like to see a breakdown of. If there's something that I didn't explain here that you have questions about, please, I'm more than open to responding and answering any questions that you might have. And yeah, thank you.